Welcome to the Lift podcast, where we lift leaders, business entrepreneurs, and ultimately lift our communities. My name is Sarah Layson, and today I'm speaking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart and what all of us deal with as leaders, business entrepreneurs, and quite frankly, people, all of us in everyday life, and that is faith over fear. And what I know is whenever any moment in time that something great is about to happen or something positive is about to happen in our lives, all of a sudden it seems like there is a boulder or something that is keeping us from getting access to that thing. And then fear shows up. And then fear keeps us from growing, learning, being able to access the greatness that I believe is instilled in all of us. And so what I want you to get out of today as we talk through different tactics and how to define fear and what that looks like and how that will probably show up in your life is I want you to ask yourself a question. Are you going to obey and be trapped by fear? Or are you going to be obedient and live in faith? And my hope is that you will take a walk towards faith and how to lean into your faith when being faced with situations that are fearful. What I know is that fear shows up in many different ways in our lives. Typically, it shows up when we're tired. It shows up when we have to be vulnerable and let our guards down. It shows up when something bigger is meant for us and we don't know or haven't seen that within ourselves. It shows up when we risk losing something. And what I mean by that, it means risking losing a relationship that might not have been a relationship that we needed to have or a toxic relationship in our lives. It means losing control or risking a financial move that we're not sure is the right move for us because we're holding on to money instead of living in faith and going after the thing that we know we are meant to have or God is telling us to lean into. And it means losing control. I mean, at the end of the day, most of us want to, specifically myself, maintain control. And so my hope is today is I'm going to talk through several of these aspects of fear and when fear circumstances have come up in my life and how I have overcome those using faith. And then I'm also going to talk about some strategies and techniques. So I hope you'll go along with me on this journey, and I hope you'll learn something through some of the amazing lessons, I don't even want to say hard lessons, that I have learned and been blessed with learning along the way. So I want to first talk about when I'm tired. So a few years back, I had the, I would say, opportunity to lead through COVID. And obviously, no leader, nobody, I don't think in general, was prepared to handle a pandemic. And I remember the world shutting down and thinking that I was living in an alternate universe and quite frankly, heartbroken for what I was seeing all over the world and knowing that there was going to be many lives lost. And for somebody that does like to control things, I felt very much unhinged and felt like everything was unraveling. And so all that to say is I remember in March coming back from a work conference and being told that the offices were shutting down. We had just moved into a new office, and as a business entrepreneur and owner, that is very difficult when you sign a new lease and you're not sure when that office is going to open up again or when you're going to be able to be back in business, or is your business going to be relevant during a pandemic, or is it deemed necessary during a pandemic. And I just remember thinking in that moment, as I had to sit in front of a screen in front of our new training room and tell all the agents that I was so blessed to be in business with, that number one, we were going to lean into faith, we were going to support each other, and we were going to take care of the people in our watch and our keep. And that was the first and foremost priority. And what I realized in that moment is in very difficult situations and as a leader, and again, I believe that we're all leaders, I think it's critical that we take pause. I think the humanity side of that is understanding that we all should take pause whenever lives are lost. And I think we should take pause and really reflect on where are we rooted in faith and how can we help support or prayerfully support those that are in need. and how can we give our time, if we can, to serve those people, whether that means time in serving them, calling them for wisdom or advice from them, or being able to give our time to somebody else that is in need. So all that to say is, during that COVID time, I learned to take pause as a leader and to truly root myself in faith. And I know some of you are dealing with some very difficult circumstances in your life where you're having to make big decisions and big life decisions. And instead of letting the world and the chaos of the world dictate your decision, I would encourage you to take back control, take pause, and really take a moment to reflect, whether that be in prayerful time or in meditation time, but just time for you to go inward and take a moment and take a pause to decide what is the next step. So instead of speaking fear and chaos into a situation, I think oftentimes we as society want to run directly to the problem immediately without taking pause to really truly get clear and alignment on what the next steps really need to be. So instead of just rushing at something, how can I take a moment to really reflect on what is the best next step for an entire organization or my family or myself? So the first example of when I have really had to decipher between fear and faith was obviously during COVID. And then the second time, I would say that I had to root in faith and not allow fear to come over me. I would say this is kind of a two-part thing, and this has to do with health. And this is really twofold as well. It's losing control and understanding I don't have control, even though I want control, and losing someone's life. And this transpired when my mom had her stroke. And I realized really quickly that I don't have control over business at that time because my priorities had to be for my children and my mother at the time, and moving and letting God guide my steps to move to Memphis, and realize while it didn't seem fair and overnight life turned unfair to what I felt was unfair to me and my family, understanding that there was a blessing on the other side. And I remember sitting in the hospital room, and I'll never forget this, coming back from Nashville to Memphis, and this angel walked into the hospital room, and it was at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I had a 6-month-old that I had to choose to sit with my mom and not my 6-month-old at the time. And this angel walks in the hospital room, and she looked at me and said, God is good. And hearing those words reminded me that although chaos and fear and uncertainty as to whether she was going to come out of this storm or not was not in my control. And it was ultimately in God's hand, and this sweet angel that I will never forget, that was just the best gift, that came to clean up my mom's room. Sharing that with me helped me again take pause and understand that if I'm going to lead and make decisions or help my family make health decisions, I needed to lead in faith and give it to God and understand that I do not have control over all of the circumstances. And so I hope that gives you all some sense of peace that in those traumatic situations, and we're all going to go through them, and we all have life circumstances that are very difficult, I would encourage you to pay attention to those around you, because I do truly believe there are angels among us, and they will show up in the time of need. And then again, in another scenario, I've talked about my dad a lot on this podcast because it was the most recent incident when my dad fell and then eventually lost his life 9 months later. But the chaos and uncertainty and the fear, as you could probably still see it welling up in me, and the grief during that time, I really got clear on how to control fear, how to put fear over here in a box. How was I going to lead through that? Because I still had businesses to lead. I still had to make sure my mom was being led and comforted. And then ultimately, I'm a mom. I have to be a mom. And I really, during that time, got really good at understanding the priority lines of God, family, and business, and during those very quiet hours, as odd as it sounds, were the most peaceful hours of my entire life. It is where I rooted very deeply into faith. I picked up the Bible, and I would encourage you all to find something to root in, something that gives you truth and hope and love and blessing in the hardest and darkest of times. Because what I've learned is fear likes to encircle us. Faith likes to give us hope. Faith likes to provide light, and faith takes us one step at a time and truly guides us. And so in saying all of that, that was, for me, fear showed up in losing something. I was losing control. I was losing people that I really, really cared about. So that would be another example. I would say that faith and fear have really come into my life. And honestly, I think that that was the time that I really got good at deciphering fear and understanding how to manage and control it to make sure that I truly was living in faith. And then another example of when it showed up is vulnerability. So I'm going to be really honest with everybody. Podcast was not on my radar. Social media is not on my radar. And I've never said I've wanted to be an influencer. Quite frankly, I've pushed back on it for many, many years. And for whatever reason, and I think I've gotten very clear on this now, God has given me some hard paths. And I think sometimes I choose hard things as well. But I've come to learn that the hard paths and the hard journey has taught me to really uncover my unique gift. And what a gift and what a blessing that God has blessed me with, because I have as intense as I may be, I have a heart full of joy in there and love and giving and kindness that I want to share with all of you. And I want to be able to impact a world that is riddled with heartache and hardship and all of the things that I would call evil in the world. And I'm just so grateful for that journey and those lessons in that journey. And so while I'm going to be very vulnerable on here, I'm also going to be serious, but I'm also going to be my fun-loving self with a lot of laughter and a lot of great stories that I hope to be able to share of other people's journeys as leaders on this podcast. I think I would be remiss not to say putting myself out there and being vulnerable has been something that I have shot against for a very long time. But I had a wise person tell me that I can help more people with the more I share of all the stories and things that I've been a part of, and how can I help share other people's stories for impact. And impact is what I want to make in a positive way on this earth, and quite frankly, in the city of Memphis, and showcase the great people in Memphis. And so being able to put myself out there, if I didn't do this, fear would have won. And so now I am rooting in faith and hoping that you enjoy this podcast series and that it, at the end of the day, impacts somebody that is listening to this for the good. And then the last one I would say, called to something bigger. This has come up in my life, and this kind of tacks on to everything I've already said with some of the hard things, and specifically coming out of caregiving. And I'm still a caregiver. For those that don't know, I'm blessed to be able to care for my mother after the stroke. Unfortunately, she can't talk very well and has limited mobility. But all that to say is being called for something bigger means putting yourself out there. And when you put yourself out there and you show others who you really are at your core and what your spiritual gifts are at your core, it's funny how the world shows up. And I remember coming out 9 months, obviously, of not being able to work, and then coming out on the other side thinking, I've lost everything. You know, I've lost my dad. I've lost these businesses. I've lost relationships because I couldn't foster that time. It's not that I didn't want to, I just couldn't. And then turn around a year later, after a very heavy season of grief, it's funny how opportunities start to flow in. And so I say this because there is a season. There's a season to reap and there's a season to sow. And during the season of reaping, it may seem a little bleak and dark and lonely. And then when you get to sow the seeds on the other side, there is an abundance amount of blessing when you lead in faith. And I know that while we may not understand it, if we root in faith, faith will grow abundantly. And so my hope is for anybody that's going through a very dark season, I hope you're not alone, and people are rooting for you. We're here for you, and on the other side, I promise you, if you root in faith, there will be abundant blessings, and there will be stories that will help impact and show love to others that are going through the same season as you. And then also, want to circle back on different tactics and strategies on how we can manage fear. And so how can we help, as it's called it, putting fear in a box. And so I want to touch on some ways that we can do that. The first one is naming it. I want you to name it. I want you to put it in a box. I want you to say, is this leading and living in fear, or am I leading and living in faith? Because I think that is a very powerful question that allows you to take back control. So the first one is to name it. The second one is to replace the narrative. And so I want you to flip the script. So instead of saying, I am not worthy of, I want you to say, I am supposed to get X, Y, and Z. Or I have this a lot. I'm an imposter. Instead of saying I'm an imposter or I'm not worthy to sit at that table, I deserve to sit at set table. I want to make sure that y'all replace the narrative in your head, because what you tell yourself matters, and what you tell yourself internally will eventually manifest on the outside. And then the third one I put is always act before you feel ready. Fear wants you to pause. Faith wants you to move. So instead of thinking that everything has to be perfect or that it's not the right time, I do think it's important to note, number one, you need to pause and reflect on it. Number two, I believe in prayer. Pause, reflect, and then pray. And then if you're told to move, I would tell you to move. Everything's not going to be perfect. You may not feel like you're ready, but for whatever reason, if you're being told to move and you do, you will find on the other side, regardless of any prior notions or fears or anything that you're telling yourself, the abundance of blessing on the other side is going to be massive. And so instead of just pausing and waiting for too long, I would encourage you to run towards it. Once you feel like you've been prayerful about it, you've sat in it for a little bit, and you know that's where you need to move. Another one is anchoring in truth. And I said this before, I believe in the order, and the order being God, family, and business. And I do not get the order right. I would say 75% of the time, I work really hard on the order. And I bring it up a lot. I bring it up a lot on social media, and I bring it up a lot. You'll hear me talk about it a lot on this podcast. When I'm in alignment with prioritizing God, prioritizing family, and prioritizing business, I have a world of abundance around me and blessings. And I mean, I even this morning got up, my kids were up early, and I don't know what magically happened, but they went to go pick up books at 6 a.m. to read, which I thought, wow, we actually did it. Now, this is one day out of, I've never had this happen before, but all that to say, I was like, I need to go do work because they're occupied. And I heard a little nudge that said, no, you're to go pick up the Bible app, and you're going to go read the verse, and you're going to go listen to the word. And then what that did to me is I sat in it, and I was able to send that word to somebody that I'd spoke to the day prior that I knew needed that word of encouragement. That's alignment. I realized really quickly, with the nudge, that I was being told that to keep the order. And so every day I do fight for the order. Every day I get out of alignment. And the days that I typically get out of alignment are usually the days that I would say I have a quote unquote bad day. And so what does God, family, business look like? For me, it is spending time with God in the morning. It is taking time to truly be purposeful time with my family every single day. And that includes my spouse and my kids, which I have to put as a priority as an entrepreneur over business time, because as natural entrepreneurs, a lot of us want to go straight to work because we enjoy it and we love it. And yet the whole reason why we went on this entrepreneurial journey is because of our children. So making sure that we put that as the second priority, and we have to check ourselves with that priority. And then the last one obviously is business. And as anybody that's working any type of job, or that's a business entrepreneur, big business, small business owner, whatever it may be, you have got to have something else outside of just working all the time. So I would encourage you, I tell people all the time that I want you to do 3 things in the morning. I want you to get your spiritual time in. So I want you to make sure that whether you're a believer or if you want to meditate, whatever it may be, no judgment. I just am asking you to take a moment to pause and meditate and or have prayerful time. So that's the first thing. Then I want you to get moving. I want you to move your body. I want you to get some sort of energy and momentum in your body so that you're fueling your soul with fitness and health. And then the third one is growth mindset. So I want to make sure that if you're going to protect yourself from fear, you have got to pour into your soul something that has to do with growth. Some positive energy, some positive quote. You're reading a book on how to equip yourself or how to better equip yourself for the day. The best way to avoid fear and anxiety is to block that time. If you block that time in the morning, you will have one of the better days because you have set yourself up for success. You hear it all the time, win the morning, win the day. There's a lot of truth in it. And I believe, again, it giving me the time I need in the morning to be my best version of myself so then I can give to my kids and my family and then business after that. So I would encourage you to do that. And then last but not least, I would encourage you to take back control of your life. The world, again, dictates a lot, and you have a choice to let it dictate you or you get to dictate it. And I tell people this all the time. What I choose every minute of the day tells everybody around me what I am letting control my life. I refuse to let the world control me because I believe that I have a gift and I have something that was given to me by God that I want to go share. And in order to be the best version of myself, I get to choose to do that every single day. And I would encourage you to do the same. Take back control. Do not give anyone or give fear or anything that's going to make you less than you were called to be time. And so my hope for you today, after we wrap up this podcast, and I know this is a more serious one, but it has been one that is very near and dear to my heart because of the things that I've gone through as a leader. And I think we're all going through it right now. We all are fearful. We are all so very fearful, and everything is so very chaotic. And if we're going to help others become more leaders, and if we're going to look inwards on how we can develop and become better leaders, we have to take back control and stop leading with fear in our hearts and start leading in faith. This is the Lift Podcast. I am so thankful that y'all stayed with me for this entire podcast session. I hope you'll come back. We've got many interviews, many great leadership lessons, and I hope that you step up and you serve well in the communities. Love you all. Thank you for listening.